Welcome to the Washington Media Scholars Case Competition Semifinals Round. This tutorial describes basic media terminology. You should find everything you need to compete in the case competition right here. Let's dive in. The case asks you to assume the role of media planner to create a media plan for your client. Your goal is to decide how the money should be allocated among the many different types of media vehicles. Your job is to make sure the message reaches the target audience, not to create the message. Before diving into your media plan, you should develop a general understanding of the key concepts and overall goals of a media plan. A good media plan answers three questions. 1. How much does it cost, and how many impressions are you creating? 2. Who is your target audience? And 3. What is the most cost-effective media mix to reach your target audience? Let's tackle these one at a time. How much does it cost, and how many impressions are you creating? First, start with the basics. What is an impression? It's the term advertisers use to quantify the number of people who have the opportunity to see your advertising. One standard measure of impressions is a cost per thousand, or CPM, which is the cost to reach 1,000 persons of a defined universe one time. Here's an example of what these terms mean in the context of a media plan. There are numerous media vehicles at your disposal. Each of these vehicles has a unique CPM, as seen in the A18+ CPM column. CPMs vary by media and by period of time within the same media due to all kinds of factors, such as available inventory, audience size, time of year, and more. It's not important for the semifinal round to understand the intricacies of pricing. Just be aware that pricing varies for many reasons, and that the cheapest option is not necessarily the best option. In order to calculate the total number of A18+ impressions, simply divide the budget by each respective media vehicle's CPM. You should notice that some media vehicles clearly get more bang for the buck. Now that you understand impressions and CPMs, take a look at an example media planning worksheet. Note the target audience selected and mediums used are just for example purposes. These concepts should help you answer the question, how much does it cost? And how many impressions are you creating? Note your budget totals in column A, CPMs in column C, and the respective A18+ impressions in column G. Also note that the budget and impressions can be aggregated across all media vehicles, giving you bottom line totals for your media plan. An average A18+ CPM of $14 is derived from these totals. All impressions are not created equal. You need a better understanding of your target audience before building your media plan. To show how a target audience definition might work, we have an example audience that we have called Example Target Audience. That audience is defined as adults 18+ in the market that have target behavior A, or target behavior B, or target behavior C. As you can see, this is about 29.4% of the total adults 18+ population in the market, or almost 1.9 million adults who are identified as overall adult population. Note that the target behaviors or characteristics used to create your target audience definition are not mutually exclusive. This means that a person can be a part of all three category variables, and they must be a part of at least one to be included in the target audience. We use a variety of media and consumer-based research surveys that you will be exposed to throughout the course of this competition. We use this data to help us learn as much as possible about our target. The best prediction of how somebody's going to behave in the future is how they have behaved in the past. Let's take a closer look at the example target audience. It's important to understand the difference between the target audience and the market's overall adult population. Remember your goals for this client. Your target audiences use media, just like other adults. However, the difference in media usage between our example target audience and the adults 18 plus population is the significant distinction that we are interested in exploiting. Here we can easily compare media usage habits. Roughly 27% of the early morning television audience is also a part of the target audience. But 32% of the late fringe audience is a part of the target audience. Using the first data row from the example media plan worksheet, you have $100,000 allocated for early morning television at $10 CPM. This means for every $10 you spend in early morning TV, 1,000 persons over the age of 18 have the opportunity to see your ad. So, by budgeting $100,000 for late night TV, you will create nearly 10 million adult 18 plus impressions. However, there is more to many target audiences than age. Notice that only 27.4% of the early morning television audience are in the target audience. Using this qualitative analysis, we can calculate a target audience CPM, which is roughly $36. In other words, the same $100,000 of late night TV would create 2.7 million target audience impressions. This logic can and should be applied to any target audience that you choose. So now you know your target and how to quantify expected media usage. Let's move on to the final question. What is the most cost-effective media mix to reach your target audience? Remember that this is not just a math problem with an end sum that represents the correct answer. There are strategic advantages in using multiple media vehicles along with the qualitative target audience research provided. There are a couple more media terms that will help you build your media plan. Along with impressions and CPMs, media buyers also use ratings and gross rating points, or GRPs. Ratings are simply impressions expressed as a percentage of the desired universe. GRPs are the sum of all impressions in a media schedule, expressed as a percentage of the defined population. Going back to the worksheet, you'll see all of these elements displayed. We've evenly distributed the example $1 million budget across all TV media vehicles as an example. Note at the bottom your buy has 995 adult 18 plus GRPs. This number is found by dividing the total number of adult 18 plus impressions, about 63.3 million, by the total adult 18 plus population of about 6.4 million. Notice that we can calculate GRPs for our target audience too, by dividing the target audience impressions by the target audience population. For our example target audience, GRPs dropped to 918. The total quantifiable difference in media usage is known as an efficiency gain. If your media plan achieves more target audience GRPs than adults 18 plus GRPs, meaning some media vehicles more efficiently reach your target audience than others. The goal is to maximize target audience impressions and therefore increase the GRPs among the target audience. When we plan a buy, we are looking at the difference between these two numbers in order to maximize our efficiency gain. In this case, the example buy is actually 3.87% less efficient at reaching the target audience than on just focusing on the general adult population. Simply, it's not a good media plan. Now let's look at an example where we put the entire example budget of $1 million into late fringe television. In this instance, we would have about 30.3 million adults 18 plus impressions and about 9.6 million target audience impressions. This would give us 476 adults 18 plus GRPs and 519 target audience GRPs. In this instance of putting our entire $1 million example budget into late fringe television, we get an efficiency gain of 8.29%. This means that your media plan is about 8% more likely to reach the target audience compared to the general market audience of adults 18 plus. There is one last factor to consider: index scores. An index score over 100 indicates that a media vehicle is more likely to reach the target audience. For example, short-term rental supporters make up 26.2% of the early morning television audience, which is lower than the 29.36% that the target audience makes up for in the total adult 18 plus population. This difference is reflected in column E, the target audience index of 89. In other words, early fringe television audiences are 11% less likely than the average adult to be in the target audience. Using the same formula, we also see that watchers of late fringe television have an index score of 109 for the target audience. So we can say that viewers of late fringe television are 9% more likely than the average adult to be a part of our target audience. That's it! Now you are ready to start planning. Create your own planning spreadsheet and begin to tinker with the budget allotted to each media vehicle to see if you can find the sweet spot. Pay close attention to the differences in adult 18 plus impressions versus your target audience impressions, as well as your GRP totals. Subtle changes can make a big difference. So, what's the best strategy? How do you balance between total impressions delivered, target audience impressions delivered, and cost? Are efficiency gains worth higher costs? That's all for you to decide and ultimately convince your client of each media vehicle's value. There's no single correct answer. The most successful entrants clearly explain their strategy and demonstrate critical thinking skills by correctly using the media concepts, using data and research to support their ideas, and communicating those ideas in a well-written document. Good luck!